Across the country, self-identified militia groups are becoming more visible, which in part led to concerns over unrest surrounding the presidential election. Last year, the Southern Poverty Law Center, a civil rights advocacy group, identified 181 militia groups around the U.S. The newest episode of the CBSN Originals documentary series Reverb follows the growing militia movement in Virginia. Executive producer Adam Yamaguchi embedded with militia members and spoke with activists fighting to stop gun violence.
The mass shootings in Virginia mobilized the fight for change.
It is unforgivable to turn our schools, our churches and synagogues and mosques into battlefields.
The newly introduced gun safety laws fired up a gun rights movement.
They come for our throats. We need to fight back fire with fire, just like he said.
If we keep going down the path we're going down in Virginia, if assault weapons are banned, that's tyrannical. And our state motto is Sic Semper Tyrannis. Loosely translated would be death to tyrants.
The Second Amendment can be regulated. Regulations have been recognized as being constitutional.
Now a heavily armed resistance is growing fast.
Threat!
Kurt, the instructor, is saying threat, threat.
Threat!
Who that threat is, I'm not quite sure.
And compromise is not an option.
Do you see any room for gun legislation?
No.
Registration?
It's an infringement.
No room at all?
No room at all.
And Adam Yamaguchi joins us now. Good morning, Adam. Why are these armed militias becoming so much more visible around the country right now?
Yeah, let me speak to Virginia, which is where we spent a lot of time with militia members. The formation of these militias was a direct response to the introduction of a raft of gun bills that wound its way through a newly elected Democratic legislature and a Democrat governor, whose priority when they were first swept into power in 2019 state elections was to introduce gun reform. Now, these Second Amendment activists say that they were essentially pushed against a wall, that they had to form militias as their only form of recourse. Now, the other factor here is that COVID-19 shutdowns have brought together a sort of a disparate group of people, anti-maskers, COVID deniers, and people who simply wanted the economy to open back up in protest. And chief among them have been these militia groups who say that they are fighting against what they call tyranny. And they point to the events of the last several months as evidence that, one, the government is out to curtail your freedoms, and two, the only way to protect yourself from tyrants and from other protesters is to be heavily armed.
Curious about who the tyrants are in this particular story, Adam, but do you have any sense on how they are reacting to the election results, and have they accepted Joe Biden?
Sure. Kurt, the firearms instructor that we saw in the clip we just played, has expressed strong support for Trump and his refusal to concede. And this seems to be a fairly widely held view amongst militia members. And they also do believe they are not willing to accept Biden as the president, because they bought into a lot of the conspiracy theories that President Trump has peddled in the run-up to the election and since.
Adam, we see you in this thing, in this piece, talking about seeing them shoot at what they call a threat. And as you say, you don't know what that threat is. So I'm wondering, sort of, what's the trigger point for these groups?
You know, they've been vague about who or what that threat is, and it certainly is somewhat alarming in these times to hear that and to see these groups coming together and training in the woods. You know, when asked whether there is any armed uprising in the works, they say no, that they are not planning any sort of armed uprising, at least not as a militia, not now, and not that they're telling us. But what is worth pointing out, though, is that 20 of the leaders of these militias have had their Facebook and Instagram pages disabled fairly recently. And this seems to be part of a larger Facebook crackdown that's disabled over 6,000 pages affiliated with militias, anarchist groups, and QAnon, if they discuss potential violence. And I can't speak to these specific pages, right. But these militia pages are known to
forgive me for interrupting.
Violence and civil war.
Right, we've got to go. Thanks, Adam Yamaguchi. We'll be right back.